Welcome to episode 11 of Running on OCP, where we speak with organizations using open compute in a variety of ways, including end users, software companies, and organizations who align with OCP tenets. This week, I stay open networking focused when I speak with the team at the London Internet Exchange. Now, the London Internet Exchange, or LINX, is one of the largest exchanges in the world, connecting over 80 different countries. I have the opportunity to speak with their CTO and Executive Director, Richard Petrie, as well as Mark Lloyd, a Principal Network Engineer. They share their thoughts and perspective about open networking in general, as well as the resources and activities that took place to roll out disaggregation in the Manchester site over the last few months. So I hope you enjoy this week's episode of Running on OCP with Richard and Mark from LINX. Thank you very much, Richard and Mark, for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
No problem. It's good to be here.
So Richard, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved with LINX.
Hi, Steve. Yeah, I've been working here at LINX now for around 7 years, which the time has whizzed by. It's been there's been a lot that we've taken on over those 7 years. I joined. No particular path that drove me to LINX. I'd worked across various different sectors, financial services, telecoms companies, and then I found myself with LINX. And as I say, I've been working here on the technology, leading on the technology side as we've developed more from a traditional IXP peering platform into a wider, multi-geography interconnection platform, and hoping to continue to keep pushing that agenda.
Great. And how about yourself, Mark?
Mark, I've been at LINX for just over 5 years now. I've started as a senior network engineer, came from a service provider type background, and now I've moved into the principal network engineer role, responsible for the exchange platforms at LINX.
Okay, great. And there may be some people in our community that aren't familiar with what an internet exchange actually does. So what services do you provide, and how does it work?
Maybe I could answer that, Steve. I'll take us through the high level what Internet Exchange does. So essentially, the traditional Internet Exchange was all about peering, and so typically it's a large SWIFT fabric layer 2 in the metro, allowing for various different networks to come together. Easy way for their networks, their autonomous systems, to interconnect and have a secure, reliable, safe way of exchanging traffic with each other. LINX itself was one of the early internet exchange points, and so we've grown across the whole of the London metro. We're now one of the biggest internet exchange points in the world. We have 2 networks in London for resiliency, but essentially we enable London or networks that terminate in London to interconnect and share traffic across with each other through peering and through other interconnection services. We've expanded, and we have very similar networks of different scale up and down the UK and Scotland, Manchester and Wales, and other exchanges around the world. But essentially, they're just a carbon copy of what we traditionally do. But what we've tried to do over the last sort of 4 or 5 years is also expand services into the wider interconnection. So we're bringing in private interconnect, co-location services, working with data center partners. We're also starting to interconnect into cloud services and work through with other technology partners to bring in richer type of services into the platform.
Now, I'll ask you some more questions about those other locations and how you're developing the partnerships with data centers in a bit. One of the things that I've noticed over the past few years when I've watched your growth is around the core principles for open source and how you're working very closely with open source software and open source hardware. Why, Mark, have you aligned so closely with open technologies?
So the disaggregating model gives us opportunities to work with different vendors, but also it gives us a fail-safe. So if one software or hardware vendor isn't operating as they should do, it also gives us the opportunity to migrate easy enough, so we're not bound into any vendor at a certain time.
And how did you come to start to work with open hardware? Is this something you did in a previous role, or how did you get introduced to the concept of disaggregation?
So this is something we looked at when we was evaluating the options for LON 2. We saw that OCNOS and EdgeCore was a viable solution for that, and then we started working intensively on the test plan from that point.
Okay, and I know, Richard, you've experienced some significant CapEx savings when you've moved to this disaggregated model. Have you noticed, do you have any numbers that you can share, or just in general, or even OpEx savings? What has been the benefit that you've seen as you move to this disaggregated model?
Yeah, so as Mark said there, we back in the early days where we selected EdgeCore and IP Infusion, one of the main factors was the cost dynamic. I mean, when we looked at the end of life of some of the extreme network services that we had in London, we went out to a traditional RFP to ask for pricing from vendors, and this was across the whole realm of all the way from white box disaggregation all the way out to your traditional proprietary silicon manufacturers, and we looked at the pros and cons of all the different dynamics, but cost, obviously the capital expenditure, the scalability that Mark mentioned, and also the OpEx were major factors. I forget at the time we assessed it was probably in the region of around 65% capital saving on the project, the implementation project alone, to upgrade the then London 2 network wholesale to EdgeCore, and we probably realised around about 50% saving year on year on operational expenditure on things like support, mean time between failure, and power and space consumption.
Those are some amazing numbers. So 65% on the CapEx, and then 50% or so on the OpEx and operational savings. Now, you just recently migrated the Manchester interconnection point to open networking. So how big of a process was that? And then you chose an interesting time to do it during all of this COVID and the impact. So talk us through that and tell us more about that migration.
So the Manchester network historically has been run on Extreme, and it's just a simple layer 2 EAPS service. So recently we migrated that to EVPN with VXLAN using EdgeCore 5812s and 7712s. So that currently spans 4 data centers within Manchester.
And how big is your team, Mark, to be doing this?
So there was about 6 of us that worked on this project over a period of a few months. So we did a parallel build of the EdgeCore network, and then we gradually migrated members over from the Extreme network over to the new infrastructure.
And your 5 or 6 engineers, do they have strong Linux skills, or did you have to train them up on this model?
So most of the people involved in this project had previous experience from the LON 2 project.
Okay, great. And Richard, the time of year that you decided to make this move, talk about the COVID impact and how you've seen this hit your network and some of the numbers that you've shared, I've seen in some of the annual reports.
Yeah, if we just take the Manchester project as on its own, I mean, why we did it at the time was probably more of a driver internally. We'd been working with IP Infusion on their OCNOS release and its compatibility with our automation platform. So we've long been running a network automation platform at the core of our network to drive configuration on London 1, which is the Juniper network. And whilst we had achieved automation on London 2, it wasn't as smooth and seamless end to end as we wanted to. And we decided, look, we're not going to do the upgrade in Manchester until we complete a lot of the tooling and automation improvements and bug fixes that we needed to do. So I think we didn't actually choose to do Manchester as specifically around the impact of COVID, because none of us at the time obviously knew when and where it would take us next. So we kind of tried to just say, look, we've got the engineers had access to these data centers, and we're willing to travel and so we made the choice based on progress of the Oknos software and the success that we made with the automation platform. I mean, outside of that, I mean, COVID has been, with like many companies, has been extremely difficult to deal with. We're in a fortunate position. The use of the internet and a lot of our partners and our customers, our members, have continued to be an essential service and be needed across this last year and a half. And so, we've continued to be sort of grow, and we continue to install capacity and build networks when other businesses have obviously struggled. But from an operational point of view, I mean, it's been challenging. We've had to scale back projects and be really really tight on, well, what do we prioritize? What can we do? What do we need to delay? What do we need to put on hold? Because obviously the amount of times we can visit site or we can get engineers and do technology upgrade projects is fairly limited, or it has been fairly limited over the last 12 to 16 months.
And the places that you have now, so you have Manchester, Scotland, Wales, Northern Virginia, and then a Saudi Arabia collaboration. So talk about that JetX relationship that you have, as well as the Northern Virginia, any relationship that you have into North America.
Yeah, if we start, North America has been quite a long standing investment from I guess from an open IX initiative. I mean, many years ago there was a drive to try and make the North American data center and interconnection ecosystem more open and competitive. And you saw a run of different internet exchanges, DKIX, AMSIX, and LINX, the London Internet Exchange. We all ventured across to North America under the Open IX initiative, and all have had various degrees of success around that. And obviously that we run that and we continue to drive and push that in North America. Going the other way around the world to Saudi, and we continue to try and look for partnerships in places around the world where we believe LINX can add value. And we got approached through Saudi Telecom, who basically said, look, we need to open up the region and make the region from an internet peering point of view much more open and transparent. And so they chose us based on a lot of our beliefs and ethos around localized internet and traffic routing principles, that they chose us to come and partner with them. And it was easy for us at that time to say, well, look, we want to put a platform out there that is very good functionally, but also cost effective. And hence we sort of said, right, well, let's take the EdgeCore platform out there, and that's what we did.
And this growth of hyperscale data centers, such as the Facebooks and the Microsoft and the Googles of the world, building more data centers here in the UK, is that impacting any of your plans or your growth as you see it, and your strategies?
Not in any unpredictable way. I mean, we've got a very good relationship. We, as I mentioned, we're a membership organization as opposed to customer base, and with the fact that we're membership, we're very close to and talk to all of those companies that you mentioned there. And so I think when it comes to capacity, and Mark and his team continue to build out capacity ahead of demand, we have very good open dialogue. And so at the moment we're talking to those members about upgrading from N times 100 gig access into our network into N times 400 gig as they see the next generation of optics and routers come out for peering. And so we do see growth and we do see challenges around these companies building out, but we see that as a positive thing and something that we continue to continue to welcome.
So Mark, if I'm an enterprise company out there, whether it be a telco or a standard enterprise, what advice would you give to somebody looking at this disaggregated networking model?
So what we found out initially is that you need a thorough testing strategy. There was many obstacles that we came across during the initial test phases, but we were able to overcome them, but it was only through having that very specific and thorough test plan to begin with.
So very thorough testing. And then what role do the partners or the vendors play in that testing environment?
They're key. We've managed to build a very good relationship with IP Infusion. They were heavily involved with the testing from day one. And yeah, that strong relationship helped us to resolve any bugs that we found very quickly.
So as we look forward, what's next for LINX? Any future plans around your infrastructure or business models or anything that you can share?
I touched on a few of these items. The drive to 400 gig is probably going to be the next big focus for us. So we're already doing a number of proof of concepts across different vendors to make sure that we can expand into 400 gig. Partnerships like Saudi Telecom, we continue to have discussions around the world and say, well, where LINX can add value, is there some partnership we can work on there. And I think, as I said, the ecosystem around interconnection has evolved from a traditional IXP into a wider integration platform, whether that's through cloud or through other services that we can offer. And that's the technology that we choose and continue to test is vital to make sure that we can flex and adapt our peering platform to be an interconnection platform. So I think you'll see the interconnection ecosystem get richer through partnership, through technology partnerships, through geographical expansion, and we constantly strive for automation, whether that's internal or external. We've recently worked on an open IX API, which is a standardized peering API with other internet exchanges like DKIX and AMSIX, and so we want to open up the peering ecosystem and the interconnection ecosystem through APIs and through digitization as well.
Well, your LINX and the entire team has just been really interesting to watch. Your success around open networking is something I know the community was quite impressed with a couple years ago when you first got up on stage in Amsterdam and shared the preliminary stories. So it was great to understand how you've taken that initial rollout of disaggregation and moved it across these other locations. So Richard, Mark, I really appreciate the time and the insight. I will be back with my key takeaways from my conversation today with the team at LINX. Some of the takeaways from my conversation today with Richard and Mark were really compelling. The first is the numbers that Richard shared around the CapEx and OpEx savings they have experienced moving to a disaggregated model. 60 to 65% on the CapEx savings and upwards of 50% on OpEx moving toward open networking. And these are really established numbers, as they've been doing this now for 2 or 3 years across their entire infrastructure, and then moving these savings onto their recent site into Manchester. So these are proven savings across CapEx and OpEx. The other thing I really liked is when Mark was talking about the number of people required to make this move. It's 5 to 6 engineers. So they don't need a giant team to be making this move toward open networking. I liked Richard's comments around the partnerships they're developing in Saudi and North America, and how they're continuing to look to broaden those partnerships, as well as the move to 400 gig. So I hope you enjoyed this week's discussion with the team at LINX, and look forward to more running on OCP episodes in the future. Thanks for listening, and cheers.